Wow, this is awesome to have so many people logging in from really all over the world, Ben. This is great. All to hear
Uh,
about.
it's amazing. I'm excited. Uh, Except for everybody complimented the way you look. Nobody said that I look nice. That's awkward. And I
Well,
was
not for me.
stuck in, and I was stuck in an elevator with your music for the last 5 minutes.
You know, it's funny. You're the one that gave me that band, FYI. So there's that. Interesting. Food for thought. Hey, everybody. How are you? And welcome. I am so excited you're here. For those of you who I have not had the privilege of meeting, my name is Vija Williams, and I'm the Director of Growth for the Ben Kinney Companies. So you can already hear that there's an affiliation with me and my interview subject today. But I am so excited to be here and so excited to interview Ben. What this is this is the Ben Kinney Leadership Mentoring Program, and this is what I'm calling our Real Estate Icon series. So this is now the second webinar in the series. I had the privilege of interviewing Chris Suarez last Friday, and it was phenomenal. In fact, we have a recording of that on our Facebook groups. So if you're not on our Facebook group, you should join. Hattie put that link on here one of these minutes. Highly recommend that. We'll also put the recording of this on there as well for you guys too. So this is the second webinar in the series. Next week, I'm going to interview Bo and Kimber Menkidi, who are a phenomenal power couple out of the Washington, D.C. area. After that, I've got Wendy Papasan slated and Sarah Reynolds slated. So we just have a great, great group of people we're interviewing. So Ben, this is about you today, though, my friend. So, Ben, I just want to say this up front. Ben is going to hate this introduction. So, Ben, you're going to hate it. So you have to just put your hands over your ears, go like this, because Ben is super humble and he doesn't like it when I start listing off his stuff. But I think there's a lot of people on here that haven't met Ben yet, and it's important to kind of understand, the empire that he has, I think, in order to understand the context of the interview. So I'm going to do it. So Ben's really one of the most iconic founders and CEOs in the real estate and the prop tech space. He's really one of the most well-known people in our industry in real estate. He's got 8 brokerages here in Washington State and a mortgage title escrow company, all of which I helped to lead, full disclosure. He's got a number of tech companies. Many of you guys have heard of Brivity, ActiveRain, Quickly. We've got Blue Roof 360, a ton of them. He and Chris Suarez formed a phenomenal brand earlier this year called Place, and together they have over 51 real estate expansion teams throughout the US and Canada. And most recently, Ben's got a phenomenal podcast. It's called Win, Make, Give. And I think Hattie is going to put the link in here. You can subscribe on iTunes or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And it's really, really incredible. It's really, really good. I've heard quite a few episodes. So please subscribe to that. Right, Ben? I know you wanted me to, you like that, right? So you don't hate the interview because I talked about Win, Make, Give. All right, Ben, it's all about you, my friend. Are you ready? You ready to focus?
Can you click gallery view up in your corner there? Do you have that set up for everybody?
I could click that in my corner if I wanted to. Yep. Okay. It started. Who is in control of this hour?
Apparently not me, ladies and gentlemen. We have no prep. We have no warning. And I gave a disclosure that she could ask me almost anything she wanted.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about that. So I want to be clear. I roped Ben into this interview. And the deal was he has no idea what I'm going to ask, and he told me it could be carte blanche and he will answer anything. But I also want to share the reason why, because he wouldn't agree to it until I shared with him the reason why. And the reason is that we see people like Ben that are so successful, right? That's a huge empire. And it's really important to me to kind of understand how a successful person like that, how they approach life, how they take the problems and the challenges and the adversity that they've had, and how they take that and they act and potentially differently than a lot of us, right? I want to learn from Ben what it looks like and what it feels like and what the actual steps are in someone's life to have obtained that much success. Is that fair, Ben? Is it fair that we use you as a case study, so to speak? Does that help a little bit?
Sure.
All right. So, I mean, the cool thing, you know, starting with your childhood, I think the cool thing about you is that you have a really well-documented childhood, right? Luckily for us, there's been a couple very powerful, I think, interviews. Gary Keller interviewed you a few years ago, and we'll put that link in our Facebook group because it's really worth watching. And he spent 45 minutes essentially going through your biography. I know that Inman News has posted really great articles kind of going back, and there's a lot of really great stuff on that. And I think it warrants kind of going there with you a little bit, because I think that to understand you, we do need to understand your childhood and what that looked like. So, you know, I know that you grew up in a small town in Western Washington, right in between you and I, because I'm in Kirkland and you're in Bellingham, and Granite Falls is right in between us. Population like 50 people, right? Like 3,000 or something, like 3,000 people.
Yeah, via monitoring chat. And if you click and make me a co-host, they can see us both at the same time. Right now, they can only see you, which I know you would rather them only see me, but I would rather them not see me at all, but that's what they're putting into chat.
He's winning, everybody. He's winning.
Okay, carry on. Something about Granite Falls. There you go.
Do you feel better now that you have a little control? That right there sets the tone of the interview.
Yes.
Okay, Granite Falls, Ben. Population of 3,000. You grew up in Granite Falls. How do you remember your childhood?
Oprah called it the meth capital of the world
Yep.
somewhere in the late 90s. I don't remember meth being around there, though, seriously. I grew up in two places, actually, Via. I grew up with my dad in Oso, Washington, which is about an hour away. And I spent the second part of my childhood with my mom in Granite Falls, like from midway through middle school through high school.
Okay. And so your parents were divorced, obviously, right? I think it's important. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom was married multiple times, and my dad never remarried. But they got divorced when I was about 2. My dad took my sister, and my dad took me, and my mom took my sister.
Yeah, which is tough, right? That's really tough as a little kid. You took me once to the cabin you grew up in, and I think to say cabin, if we're being honest here, it was like a shed, Ben. It was like maybe 200 square feet, maybe.
270.
I mean, it really isn't probably a habitable dwelling, let's be honest. I mean, did it have electricity or running water or anything?
From time, we would borrow an extension cord from another property, and because there was power in the area, but we didn't have power. We had a wood stove and outhouse, and we had a cold water, no hot water available.
Yeah. Okay. So let's walk through that. So you're going up with your dad, and it's just you and your dad, and there are some days where you literally don't have food to eat, right? Is that a fair assessment?
There was some times when we had one meal a day, and that was rice and butter or potato and butter or something like that. And there was times that there wasn't enough for my dad and me, and my dad went without. But there wasn't a day that I think that I can remember that we had zero food. Dad always figured something out. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Because I know that one of the things that you've talked about before is getting food donations from food banks and having to shake cans to know what was in them.
I have a special place in my heart for the food bank, specifically kids that are hungry. The hardest time growing up was the summers, because during the school year, you at least got a lunch at school provided. And they didn't have school breakfast programs back then, but at least you got a lunch, right? So then you would have a little bit to eat for dinner when you got home. But in the summer, you didn't have a lot of that. Those were tougher times. But it does create, one, probably a shitty metabolism for me today, and two, internal drive to not be hungry again. To not go without things, to not be put into a position where I feel like I have to try to survive.
I mean, looking back, do you think you would be where you are now if you didn't have that?
I think it's the greatest gift that ever happened to me.
Wow. Really?
I think, you guys have heard the stories of my mom having such a challenge with drugs and alcohol. But when my dad took over custody of me, my dad wasn't that way. I mean, he chewed, um, but he wasn't a big drinker, and he didn't really do any other drugs. And he loved me. He took care of me. He took me into the woods, and my mom loved me too. So when you hear some of the side conversations of my childhood, it sounds bad, but my parents loved me, right? They just didn't do a great job of providing all the time,
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
One of the things I did for prep for this interview, Ben, is I talked to your sister, Michelle, and she said the exact same thing. She said, we came from a very, very loving, both of our parents were very loving. And that, the only thing really lacking was just this ability to maybe provide the basic necessities for you, like food, which sounds funny, but if I appreciate it. And you do, I know your dad and your sister, and you do have a loving family. So I think that is important to point out. So there was a point, however, where you moved to your mom's house.
Yeah. It did make me hate substances. Like, to this day, I've never taken drugs
Yeah.
because I hated it. Like, I hated my mom smoking pot while I slept on her lap, or a heroin overdose at a pizza restaurant when I was a kid, or just marijuana plants with Christmas ornaments on them. Like, my whole life, I've hated smoking and drugs. And I rarely drank because I hate drunk people.
Yeah.
And I hate the effects of it, and I hate how much it made my parents fight, and how it brings the worst things out of people. I hated it. I still hate it to today. And it's, that's a gift too. It's forced me to not partake in those sort of things.
For sure, it's a gift. But people go other ways too, Ben. Like you went in the direction of like, I hate this, but unfortunately, a lot of people who grow up in those environments go the other way and they partake more, right? So I think that's a good example of how you had this background that quite a few people unfortunately have, and yet here you are, right? Here you are with the empire that you were embarrassed for me to describe at the beginning. I think that's fascinating. I think that that somehow some way that you approach life, or the decisions you make and how you act, it's different. And I think that's what's worth exploring. That's why I drug you on here today. So you went from your dad's house to your mom's house. Why was that, and how old were you?
I was in 6th grade, and I noticed something in 6th grade that I hadn't noticed prior, and that was girls. And girls appreciated guys who showered, and there wasn't a shower, and there wasn't the ability to wash clothes, and there was certain resources that were not available. And I think I had a childhood where the kids knew me as this certain kid, right? And I wanted to maybe start over fresh. I wanted to spend a couple years around my sister while she was in school, and I wanted a shower, and to be able to come to school and kind of mature into a young adolescent teenage shithead, which I was.
I might have heard that a little bit when I did my research, a little bit. I also heard you were really, you were in sports too, though, in high school, and had a lot of friends. Like, you were in wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So to me, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, to me, there feels like there's a pivotal event that happens to you in childhood. And that is the moment where you caught your stepdad cheating on your mom.
Yeah, I didn't catch him. One of my friends called me and said they just saw my stepfather holding hands with another woman, and my mom was inside the house. But that wasn't a pivotal moment as much as it was, 15 years of alcohol and fighting and anger and just the chaos that all came to a moment there where where my stepfather and I got into a physical altercation. And I kind of said this to you earlier, that he wasn't a bad guy. Like, he was a bad drunk, and they were bad together, him and my mom. Well, through a bunch of, violence and yelling and everything that happened that day, I grabbed my stuff and left. I just packed up and left, and I never went back. And it must have been a couple weeks later, and the dates could be confusing in my head, Via. I don't, it was a long time ago, but my mom packed up and left. And that showed me something that I'll always hold deeply for my mom was she sacrificed staying in that relationship because she couldn't afford to take care of me on her own. And she stayed in that alcoholic, rats, and it was a bad situation for a long time, long past after the love had left. She stayed because of me. And when I left, she left, and she went off on her own and started a new life. And that was a sacrifice that I don't know how to be more grateful for my mom than I am today, for that sacrifice that she did to just give up her own health and happiness to stay in a relationship that she shouldn't have been in. Funny enough, after she left, he got sober as well, and his life changed. And when she left, she found a man who she was married with until she died a couple of years ago, who was a good man as well. It was a pivotal point, and I left at 18 years old to go start my life, working 2 jobs and finishing the school year, and then going into community college.
Yeah, but I want to go back to it, Ben, because I've heard you say that story before, and is it fair to say that you lost control that day? Is it fair to say that the anger you felt in that moment when you basically, beat the crap out of your father-in-law was an out of control experience for you?
I took my gym bag and I started beating him over the face with it. And then we got in an altercation and knocked the door down. And then I took all the alcohol in the house and I threw it outside the front door. And at that moment right there, I knew that I could kill him. I knew that I was fine at that moment, that I could have shot him. I had lots of guns even back then. That I was so out of control, Via, that I could have ended up in prison the next day because I lost control. And just like I want to be a co-host, I want to be in control of almost everything in my life, Via. That's an internal need that I have today, to be in a position that nobody else is going to put me down a path that could harm me or my people. Control is very important. Well, I left that moment, and I thought back on some things that I had done in my life when I lost control. There was a kid that threw a water balloon at me, and I ran across a parking lot and punched his window out because they threw water. I had a horrible temper. And when I got to that point of being that angry, it wasn't me anymore. It was somebody entirely different. And I made a decision that day that I wasn't going to get mad. And you can look 23 years later at the number of times that I've been super angry is very minimal. And the number of times that you could physically see me angry, you could probably count on a couple of fingers. You could steal from me, you could cheat on me, you can say bad things about me. There's only a couple people that have the ability to push a button on me right now that pisses me off. And those are people that I truly care about.
Is that what makes you really mad now? There's got to be a time that triggers you. So what triggers you now? Is it a person or a thing?
Well, I still get mad, but I'm able to walk away before I lose my shit. And what I do now when I'm angry, Via, is I get quiet. If I'm super pissed at someone, I'm just going to go silent. Or I'm going to leave the situation. I'm going to walk away because I know no good comes from me getting past this certain point, right? I'm a dangerous to my relationships and to myself when I get past a certain point. So I walk away. Now, what was your exact question there?
That's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, because I've heard you tell the story of your stepfather, and I knew immediately when I heard that story, just knowing you so well now, that was what formed you into probably one of the most emotionally controlled people I know. And I've always been fascinated by someone who has so much, regulation over their emotions. And I have always wondered with you if you're volatile in your head, and if it's just your behavior you're controlling, or if you've gotten to a point where you're actually controlling the emotion.
Yeah, you're controlling yourself before you get to that no go forward spot, right? How many like fights you had with a spouse or something that if you would have walked away and had the rest of the conversation the next day, it would have ended a lot better.
Yeah.
Right. Or with an employee. I just know that if I can notice in somebody else that we need to pick this conversation up tomorrow, you're not in a good spot to talk, or I'm not in a good spot to talk. Can we pick this up tomorrow? And walk away, because when you don't, you end relationships, you hurt people, or you do something that's going to stick in their minds and their hearts forever, and you just don't want to do that. So it's not that I don't get mad, is I don't allow myself to go past the no return point.
Fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So after high school, you wanted to be a teacher. And I heard something that I didn't know about you before. Is it true? Were you the youngest person nominated or elected to the school board? Is that true?
I ran for the Granite Falls School Board. I have a lot of passion around schools and education, and I did want to become a school teacher. And I did run for Granite Falls Board of Directors school board. The newspaper printed that I won, but by the time they added up all the absentee ballots, I had actually lost, and I lost to a good man who was probably a better choice. I was not quite mature enough for that position, and if that would have happened, I would have stayed in Granite Falls, and maybe I never would have left. And one of the best things that happened for me was to get out of that town. Not that it's a bad town, but it wasn't good for me. I have too many memories and emotions tied to situations in that town. I needed to leave, and that eventually led me to living in Bellingham. So it was a really good thing that happened.
So let's talk about that. So, you're in Bellingham, and you started installing cable, right? And then you went from installing cable. What was your next thing after that, Ben?
Selling cable.
Okay. How did that come about?
I basically saw somebody doing the same job as me, driving a better car and dressing nicer and having a better life and not being soaking wet and covered in cobwebs and rat shit from crawling underneath somebody's home. And I thought to myself, I want that guy's job. And what you'll see is that I observe things that I want in life, and then I find a way to go get it. I think other people allow things in life to walk by them, and they miss that. So I asked the guy, who do you work for? What do you do? How much do you make? Probably inappropriate questions, but I was a kid. That's what we do, right? And then I found his boss, and I pestered his boss, Dominic Albano, until Dominic finally hired me to do sales, cable TV sales.
That's incredible. It's an incredible story. And when you do cable TV sales, so you were door knocking. You're literally just knocking on doors trying to sell cable, right? Isn't that how it worked back then?
Yeah, I probably have knocked 40, 50,000 doors in my life and cold called 250,000 people. Incredible. That's why I don't feel sorry for a TL when we ask them to make 20 contacts, or an agent when we ask them to call 100 people. Like, when you've called 250,000 people to sell them cable TV, phone, or internet, right? To make $10 or $15. Yeah, selling real estate to somebody is not that big of a deal.
Yeah, well said. That puts it in perspective for all of us, I think. So you started selling cable. How'd you do? And how old were you by then, Ben? Early 20s, I'm guessing.
Yeah, really early 20s. I was probably 20 years old by the time that I got that position.
Okay.
I did good in the beginning because I outworked people, meaning that I just was in better shape. You're not going to believe that, ladies and gentlemen, but back then I was quite a svelte individual. And I would out-knock people. I would just outwork people. And over time, I outsmarted people, meaning I was thinking that how do I make more money per hour instead of work more hours. And in order to do that, you have to evolve and change something. So that's what I did.
So you're like 21 or 22, and do you go home at night thinking, how do I do this? Did you problem solve? I mean, I don't know that a lot of people think that way. What did that look like for you? Did you just kind of stare at something one day and it hit you like a light bulb, or did you ponder stuff for a long time?
I think I'm always kind of a thinker, but I'm always observing and paying attention to stuff and taking that idea and trying to make it a better idea. I mean, the precipice of my real estate or of my cable TV sales career was I figured out that most people that are already living in a house made a decision who to use for phone, cable, and internet, or to have it or not have it. So I didn't need those people. I needed the people that hadn't made the decision yet that were moving in. So I went out and created a utility sheet that had cable, phone, internet, electricity, water, sewer, everything on there. And I designed it on my computer and put the real estate company, the apartment building, the property management, the Navy base. I put everybody's logo on top of a sheet of paper and printed it on nice paper. And I handed it out to hundreds of different organizations saying that, hey, my name is Ben, I'm the Comcast rep in the area. Comcast asked me to come out there and give you these new utility sheets that have been customized to your business. Under here, you'll see there's some phone numbers that go direct to our team. We offer discounted installations and service 7 days a week. And we just started handing those out. And before, I was making, 1, 2, 3, 4 sales a day. By the time I was done, I was selling 10 to 15 cable counts a day, and going to college and making 125 or 150,000 a year selling cable TV, because I got people to call me by going out there and building those relationships and working smart, not hard. And,
I mean, that's incredible. So you're a full-time college student. You're making, back then, by the way, 125 to 150 then. I don't know what inflation is, but it's more now, and that's even a lot now, I think. It's incredible.
It's a good income.
What got you into real estate then?
I think most people know that story, but there was two things that got me into real estate. One, I decided to buy a duplex because of somebody I met installing cable. Okay. The idea that somebody else would pay off your mortgage and you could live for free was one of the greatest ideas I've ever heard. Still is, by the way. If you can find a way for somebody else to pay off your mortgage, that's the path to the wealth. The second thing was my real estate agent, Catherine, who's our MCA in Everett, told me I should get into real estate and gave me Gary Keller's book. And because of that, I read that book and I said, this is just like selling cable TV, but you get much bigger paychecks.
Yeah.
This is just like selling cable TV, except for I don't have a boss that's going to lay me off and fire me all the time. I can actually own my own business. Mm-hmm. And when I got into real estate from day one, my idea was I was going to own my own business. I was going to be my own boss and I was going to build my own business. I wasn't going to be a real estate agent. That was never on my mind. I happened to sell real estate. I was going to be a business owner.
Did you always know you were going to own your own business when you got out into the world? Was that something that you always envisioned?
No, I thought I was going to be a school teacher. At times, I thought I might be president. Actually, I had some dreams of politics.
You better be careful. There's a lot of people here who'll get excited about that.
Being a teacher. But I was working as selling furniture early in my career, and we had to do credit checks. And I did a credit check for a school teacher who'd been doing it for 4 or 5 years, and I saw this lady's income. And one, it was horrible back then what teachers made, and I'm not sure what they make today, but it's not equal to their contributions to the world by any means. I knew that I wanted to chase money, and I was making more selling furniture at 18 and a half years old or 19 years old than I would selling, being a school teacher after 6 years of school or whatever.
Yeah.
But what I found in my life is that I never thought that I would be where I am today. But I knew that once I made 30 grand, that I could make 60. I knew that once I made 60, I could make 100. I knew that once I made 100, I could make 200. Once I made 200, I knew I could make 400. Once I made 400, I knew I could make blah, blah, blah. In real estate, I knew that once I sold 20 homes, I could sell 40. I wasn't working at my potential at 20. Once I sold 40, I knew I could sell 80. Once I sold 80, I knew I could sell 160. I never think like so far down the path or so far into the future that it creates a box that I'm trying to fit in. I just know what I'm doing now isn't my full potential, and I believe I can double where I'm at today. It may take me a couple of years, but I do believe that I can double where I'm at today. I've doubled my weight. I'm sure I can double my wealth or double my businesses.
So let me ask you a question on that. That is exactly how you think, by the way. And what if I asked you where you see yourself in 10 or 20 years?
Tall, tan, skinny.
Right. That's realistic.
I don't know, Via. I have no idea. And to be honest, I don't care. I'm about the journey that I'm on today, and I would like that to be to continue to grow. Like I've already make enough money to take care of my Ford 150, my $5 T-shirt, and my North Face vest. Like what I care about is, can I help my people have what I have today?
Yeah.
And I would like to spend the next 20 years of my life helping people get to where I'm at.
Is that the calling for your life?
I think so. I think I'll be known for helping people build wealth. And I think I'll be known for building and buying and increasing the value of businesses. And hopefully giving back. I don't know. I'd like to be known for being a great hunter, a great fisherman. I like security, Via. And in 20 years, I'd like to know that I have the security to take care of everybody that I love, and that I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. And this, I kind of thought I was there, but this pandemic told me that I wasn't. Like we are not in a position today where I have a choice whether I show up or not. And we've been talking about this. I'm fucking exhausted. At the end of the day, every day, I am physically, mentally, emotionally exhausted. And I would love to take a day off, but I don't have a choice. Like I have 50 something businesses that rely on me today, and hundreds of employees and partners and contractors and agents and friends and family members that really need me to show up. So I have to show up. And I thought I was at a position where I didn't have to. That wasn't true. I'm not. I have to show up right now. And it's okay because it's given me, I'm exhausted at the end of the day, but at the start of the day, I'm energized. I feel like I'm needed for the first time in a couple of years, and it gives me this opportunity to show up and maybe live up to my potential. I was just talking to a friend of mine, Jimmy Mack, and he's the founder, curator, and just a cool guy, and we mastermind sometimes. And he said a statement very similar to what I've been thinking. These tough times are forcing us to make decisions that we knew we should have made in the past, but we didn't have the guts to do it today.
Well said. Well said. You actually do have a choice, though. I mean, and that just where my head went when you said that, Ben, is when's the last time you wanted to quit? Was that today? Was that a month ago? Was that a year ago? When did you want? Everybody wants to quit at times. What has made you get to the brink where you've really thought that you were going to quit?
Well, I think what helps me with quitting is the fact that I understand that quitting is a natural feeling, and I want to quit every day. I didn't want to do my push-ups last night like I was supposed to for my push-up accountability group. I didn't want to get up and come to work yesterday and do the 5 Zooms and 4 webinars and 50 calls that we had to do. I didn't want to do it. I wanted to quit. But I don't let people down. I'm driven by not letting people down. I think what's a great lesson for everybody to hear is we all want to quit this shit. This is all bullshit. We'd all like to not be in these situations or dealing with this stuff. And quitting's actually very natural. And if it's not, you aren't really pushing yourself. You aren't growing. You aren't challenging yourself. You're living a safe life. And I don't live a safe life. We talked about courage as a group with our offices the other day. Courage is our ability to take risk and take action. I'm a risk taker and I'm an action taker. Because of that, it puts me in positions where I screw up, I fail, or it becomes hard. And because of that, I want to quit. If you don't feel like quitting, I wonder if you're actually living up to your potential.
When have you quit?
Oh, I quit my cable job. right? I've quit relationships. I've quit partnerships. I've quit employment relationships with people.
Mhm.
I've quit working out. I mean, there's lots of things that I've quit, and some of them got me to where I'm at today. And some of those things that we quit, you know, those become regrets in our lives, and they become lessons, I guess. So there's good quitting and bad quitting. We know that that's a true statement.
Yeah, for sure. What are your biggest regrets in your life? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, Ben. You've had an incredible amount of business success, but you know that comes with a sacrifice. So I'm curious if you have any regrets with things that you've maybe sacrificed or things that you've quit to get you where you are now.
Mm, you know, I regret losing my health and not working out consistently. I used to love to go to the gym and work out every day, and I put business before health. Times in my life, I've lost my faith, and I think faith is a little bit like good quitting and bad quitting. We all go through different times of our lives when we have more or less faith. You know, I've um, maybe getting to my age and feeling like it's, you know, if I was to have a family, they'd be 65. I'd be 65 when they graduated. Maybe it's relationships that were good, but just a bad time. Maybe that I put too much time into business and not enough time into time off. Definitely not seeing my mom more than before she died. Um, which the blessing with that is that I moved my dad up here with me, and he lives a mile from my house, and I get to see my dad more. So there is, you know, lessons from those regrets. In general, I don't think I have a ton of regrets because I look at them as lessons. So that was a harder question for me, Via, because I don't see it that way. Um, there's definitely friendships that ended, some my fault, some not my fault, that I wish were still here.
Sure, sure. I appreciate. Thanks for going there for me. I appreciate that. You know, when you look back and we kind of skipped the whole sort of birthing of your real estate career. We skipped that part. It's really well documented. It's a really cool story. I think you actually said it in one statement when you said, look, I knew when I was at 0 homes, I knew when I sold 20 homes that I could probably sell 40. I knew that when I sold 40 homes, I could sell 80. I think if you just take that, that's really how you built this. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I look at the next closest benchmark and I run to that. I don't get so caught up in the idea that, gosh, how do I get very far out in the future? That'll work out or it won't work out. A lot of times when you plan too far in the future, you waste all this time planning and you never actually get there because your drive or your motivations or the economy or whatever changes. You just waste time on it. Don't waste time. Just get to the next benchmark. I I am for you vegans out there, I apologize, but I am a hunter. I love hunting and fishing and being in the woods and hiking and picking mushrooms and even gardening. Like I just love the natural world. I love photographing animals and seeing animals and so on. But I've spent a fair amount of time in the woods with experts. And this one guy, I was really like not in good enough shape for this adventure that I went on. And I said, how much further do we got to go? And he's like, it's just right up at the top of this hill. And we got to the top of the hill, and he's like, oh, there's just one more. And we went through this process a couple times. He's like, it's just another 5 minutes or something. He did this to me for like 2 hours. And he damn well knew that it wasn't 5 minutes or just at the top of this hill, but he knew that mentally I could go for another 5 minutes or I could go to the top of this hill, right? If I would have known that it was another 2 hours of climbing up a mountain, I probably would have said, screw this and walked away, right? But he put it in digestible chunks that I could imagine myself getting to.
Really, really well said. And you know what fascinates me about that, because, you know, you and I have worked together in various roles for about 8 years. And you've always been like that. And I think looking back, I was super attached to outcomes, right? And I always picture it like a mountain analogy. I was so focused on the top of that mountain, Ben, I steamrolled everybody in my path, right? And you've kind of done it the opposite, where you've always kind of said, hey, Vija, everyone in my organization, all I know is I'm going to that base camp over there. And when I get to that base camp, I'm going to be able to see more, and I'm certainly going to see the second camp. But what I don't know is necessarily what the top of that mountain looks like. And so many books we read and so many people we hear interviewed, you know, that are really successful like you are talking about 10-year plans, right? And 20-year plans. And it's kind of the opposite of how you've approached, I think, you know, your life and certainly your businesses. So I do think that you might take that for granted. I think it's kind of unusual. And actually I think that way now, but it took a lot of time for me to switch from being goal oriented and having that outlook, that far outlook, and doing that. Because do you find a lot of your peers when, I don't know, what do you founder CEOs do? Do you all go bowling? I don't know what you do, but when you hang out with peers that are, that own, businesses that are similar, do they have that same outlook or is it different?
Yeah, for years, Via, I don't set goals for my brokerages or for my sales teams. And my partners will tell you, I ask them what their goals are, and I want them to hit their goals, and I add it all up in my mind, and I wonder, is that enough for me? And if it's not, I go find more of them to get there. It's not really about my goals. I don't do that. I have my own life list of things that I want to accomplish, right? And I would put that, like, I'm a goal person when it comes to that, but not in business, because my real goal is to do more and to do better this year. Mm-hmm. And some years are not like that. Like, Gary Keller said once, the leader's job is to go in front of an organization, paint the vision, and go behind them and start pushing. And I think that's a good definition of a leader in normal times. But, you've heard me say this, Via, this is not normal times. Like, today, the leader's job is to go in front of the group, paint their face fucking blue, yeah, right? Grab the sword, put on their kilt, drop their underwear, run forward with that sword out saying, follow me, we got this.
People need to see our backs right now, not our fronts. That's right.
Yeah, it's a Braveheart time to paint our faces blue, get in front of our people, take our swords out too, and say, no, I'm in this too. Like, I'm not a manager. I'm going to be swinging the same sword as you for a while, right? Follow me. We got this. And they need to hear from you in such a way where they all hear, yeah, we got this. Winston Churchill, when he did two things that I think was really phenomenal. One, when planes were flying over London and bombing them, he would climb onto the roofs and start firing his pistol at them. The pistol would have no effect on a plane that was that high up, but it was a statement. It was a statement of, hey, screw you. You can try to bomb us if you want, but we are going to fight back. The next thing he did, Via, is he would go into the streets to the homes that were bombed the night before, to the businesses that were bombed, and he would visit them himself. Even with threat of more bombs coming, he was out there visible, and he would go to these people who had just lost their house or their business, and they would leave with a feeling of, we are going to be victorious, V for victory, we got this, everything's going to be okay. And Winston was able to create that confidence in people that just had a bomb dropped on their freaking house, whose spouses are probably overseas or on Navy ships or fighting, whose businesses are destroyed, and they're probably super hungry because there's such a lack of food and resources during those times. But he left them with that feeling. That is our job, to leave people with a feeling that it's actually going to be okay. We got this. We're going to be victorious. Now, Via won't tell you this, but she came to me and said, this is my first pandemic. I want to win this one. And I thought to myself, I didn't know that you could win a pandemic, but I'm all in for that idea. Let's freaking win this one. Like COVID-19, how do we get the trophy on this one?
I'm calling it my windemic. I'm going to win this.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to define, by the way, you know how you win it, Ben? You define what winning means. That's how you win it. So let me ask you this question. What's on your list of accomplishments then? If you don't want to give me a 10 or 20-year outlook, I'd like to know what are things you haven't achieved yet that you want to achieve?
that I haven't.
That you have not.
Uh, well, besides abs,
Well, abs can be one.
you know, I want my people to become millionaires. I want to give $1 million back a year in our community that we work in. Other than that, I don't know. I really want to buy a ranch. I read ranch magazines all the time. I'd love to buy a really big ranch somewhere in the world that I could spend half the year hiding and being there. And other than that, I just want to keep building cool shit. I want to build businesses and get in business with really great people that give me energy, not take my energy, and have fun. And that's why you and I look at each other when we talk about like how many hours should we work. I think most people should work 40 or 50 hours a week because mentally they don't get energy from their job. We love working. Like we love talking about work. We love thinking about work. We love building businesses. It gives us energy. It is not work for us, right? It gives us this joy. And I like doing that. If I quit everything today or sold everything today or everything failed today, I get back up tomorrow and I go build it again or build something different. And
well, let's go there, Ben. Wait, stay on that a minute. Let's stay on that a second. So if you woke up and I handed you $100 million, what would you do with it tomorrow?
Well, that's a tough question. I'll tell you the safe financial lesson would be I would take $100 million. I would leverage it to buy 500 million worth of real estate, and I would let the renters pay it off for me, and I would give that money away at the end. That's the risky side of me is I go build something that nobody's ever built before, probably in software, and I do it the right way instead of like scrapping together every dollar that I could to build the software companies that we have. And the philanthropic side of me would say I would probably give most of it away because I don't really need anything else. So I don't know how to answer that. Those are my three answers.
I'm interested in the part of the building part. I'd like to know what you build with that.
What I'd build with it? More companies that help other people become wealthy. Like I feel like I'm building what I want to be building right now, whether it's Place or our brokerages or our software companies. Like we're building really cool stuff, right? I want to help other people become wealthy. I'm going to put something in chat right now that you guys can check out. I'm so interested in helping people understand wealth that I'm going to train everybody that signs up for free for 6 hours of wealth building over a 2-week period. It's in the chat thing. If you guys are interested in that, let me know.
And we can also put that in our Facebook group as well, Ben, for the people watching this on replay. So, looking back on everything, and that's really great to hear that you're building what you want to be building, right? That's a great answer for me to hear because I'm having fun on this ride with you too. Looking back, how much of your success do you think is luck versus you being prepared and purposeful and smart and all this stuff, right?
A podcast that Vija sent me a while ago that I refound on my own.
Well done.
Named Naval. Naval talked about the 4 types of luck. The first type of luck is blind luck. That's where you wander around the world and you just trip over something, $1, and you pick it up. That's blind luck. Some people have blind luck, especially real estate agents. Some people go to the bathroom and they come back with a listing every time. Like they have no systems, no CRM.
I was waiting for bathrooms to be brought up. Thank you.
Right? They just come back with it. That's blind luck. The next type of luck is activity-based luck. That's where somebody goes up and they stirs up enough shit that they eventually kick a hornet's nest and find a bee, right? That's where they call enough people, they knock enough doors, they just do enough activity to whereas the rest of the world sees them as lucky because they're successful or they have a bunch of business. No, it's actually just because they do enough activity. The third type of luck is skill-based luck. Skill-based luck is when you have a unique ability to understand, identify, or realize that there's an opportunity in front of you. That's like you're driving down the street and you see a property that has a garage sale. You know that 9 out of 10 times that property is going up for sale. Or the property that has blackberry bushes growing on it, you know that it's no longer vacant, that's going to be a property that will sell. Or you're at a listing appointment and somebody says, I just want to sell it quick, I'll take 300,000. You're like, all right, I'll buy it. Right? That's because you have a unique skill. And Naval said it would be like that there's a treasure that's 150 feet down in the ocean, and you're the only one in the area that can dive 150 feet. So because of your skill, you get to go take advantage of that luck, that opportunity. But the last type of luck is what I'm particularly interested in. And I never heard it this way, but I think it's the secret of our success. It's when your reputation, your skill, your brand, right? Your contributions to the world creates creates something that happens that other people bring you their luck. Somebody says, oh, I just found this perfect assistant, you should hire them. And you're thinking, why didn't they hire him? Or somebody brings you a listing that says, I have this new luxury listing, will you co-list it with me? Or somebody says, I have this really great idea, but they can't do anything with the idea because they don't have the money or the people, so they bring you their idea. Or they have a business that's hit a ceiling and they come to you and they say, I want to bring you my business, let's partner. And because you have such a great reputation for treating people great and building big things, you have a great brand, you have great results, a great track record, everybody brings you their luck. Well, what that looks like over time is it looks like compound interest. Mm-hmm. Compound interest looks like this, and all of a sudden it starts looking like this. I hate when I lift my arm up because the polar bear and I have the same complexion. You see this massive growth, Vija, and that's what you're experiencing in our companies. Is we're getting a reputation for Brivity being the best software out there. We're getting a reputation for our expansion teams being a place where people can double or triple their production and their profit. We're being a reputation of a great place to work with great benefits and great rewards and great training, and we teach people leadership. Like, we're getting this reputation so we don't have to work as hard to get the opportunities that have brought us today. So yeah, I think I have a lot of luck right now, but I think it's because I spent 16 years or 20 years stumbling over opportunities, stirring up enough shit, building my skill set up so that I wake up today and people look at me as lucky, but it's actually 20 years of caring about people, working hard, working on relationships, keeping those relationships, and being willing to play a very long game.
Yeah, that's one of your superpowers, which we're going to go through in a minute. But what you're saying is that you're attracting it now. You're saying you worked 20 years for this overnight success, right? Essentially.
Basically, yeah.
So Ben, what's your biggest insecurity?
Well, I think I'm very insecure about my weight and my paleness. I rarely wear shorts because I have the widest legs that you'd ever see. I'm insecure personally about being taken advantage of or being hurt by people, so I put a guard up.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because I saw a mom who was, divorced multiple times and seen a lot of great relationships and seen a lot of the ugly sides of people, and it makes you feel a little bit like you need to protect yourself. In business, what's my biggest insecurity? Is that I'll make a mistake that affects the livelihood of my employees, or that my desire to grow fast, to take risks, or to build something big is going to hurt everybody along the way, or that I won't be able to deliver on the promises that I made to my people about building wealth or so on.
What do you fear the most in business?
Not keeping my promises.
That's an internal thing. What do you fear the most externally?
I don't. Like, okay. At the end of this COVID thing, I'm going to be okay. you're going to be okay. Because I know the worst thing that could happen is everything that I own goes away. Well, what do I do next? I just come back, I build it again. Yeah. If I know that no matter what happens, I'm going to come back, then I don't have really a lot of business insecurities. You could take everything away from me and I would still probably be just as good. Just don't take my best.
Where does that come from? Why do you think that, why do you think you don't fear that when a lot of people do?
Because they think stuff defines them, or their results define them, or their income defines them. I think how we treat people defines us. And even during this time, we're going to treat people really awesome. And if I lose everything, my people will know that I tried hard to not make that happen, and that they'll be the first ones I call if we build this back up.
Yeah. So on that note, what do you think the biggest misconception of you is?
I don't know. I'd be curious to hear what you say on that, Vija. I think people see me as transparent and open to share things. And I am about my past because it provides lessons to people, but I'm an incredibly private person and I'm incredibly non-social. I can count the number of friends that I hang out with on one hand. Like I don't spend a lot of time with other people, and I prefer it that way. People might see me as more social because they see me as on stage Ben or on an obnoxious webinar Ben or something like that, but that's not really me. I don't know. What do you think it is?
I don't know that I get an unvarnished view of that either. I don't know that any of your inner circle can answer that maybe very well.
I think Jacqueline nailed it. Jacqueline said, the biggest misconception about Ben is that he doesn't get mad, sad, worried, tired.
Well said, Jacqueline.
That's so good, Jacqueline, because yeah, I want to fucking quit all the time. Yeah, I get depressed. I get sad. I feel insecure. Like, I think that's a really profound statement, Jacqueline. Thank you.
I think I think it's perfect because I know immediately when you're mad. The difference is that, you know, I don't think many people would. I think that it's pretty disguised unless you talk with you 5,000 times a day like I do. Ben, what do you think your most important habits are?
Managing my energy every day.
How do you do that?
You know, I make sure that I have food here and hydrate here and some form of exercise and breaks to listen to music or read and time to pray and think. And I don't try to sprint for 5 hours. I try to go hard for an hour and take a break and then go hard for an hour and take a break. And I try to do that. In fact, I push back on people like Vija who want to book me for something else because I know that there's a limit what I can do every day. If I want to maintain this for the next couple months, this sort of momentum, I have to have a certain level of, I have to have breaks and I have to maintain my energy.
Yeah, that's right. You're really good at that, actually. So what do you think your own superpowers are?
I think the one that people wouldn't think with me, and you and I have talked about this in the past, is patience. Like, I'm an incredibly patient person, meaning that I will work on a relationship to be in business with somebody for 10 years. And when the time's right, I will act on it. I will work on a business deal for years and years and not walk away from it until it's done for years and years and years. And I'm incredibly impatient. And when I need to act, I will act very quickly. And I think people get caught up on all their wins have to be short term. But a lot of the people I'm in business with, I nurtured those friendships and relationships for years and years and years until I knew it was right. They were the right person and it was the right time. Like Chris. Chris and I talked about working together for 4 years before we actually made it happen. I coached Vija for 8 years before we got into business together. I knew David Wiggs, our COO, for 16 years, right? I'm incredibly patient and impatient at the same time.
What does the impatience look like?
When we have a plan, I want that plan done now.
Yeah.
We need to act. Like,
of course, I knew the answer to that. I just wanted them to know.
execution is key for sure. Jack Welch said that everybody needs the 4 E's: energy, our own personal energy, to energize others, and edge. I'm definitely on the edge. I'm a sharp individual, like sharp edgewise, and execute, the ability to execute.
Well, as an exercise to prepare for this interview, I asked a number of people what they thought your superpowers were, and I thought I would share some. I also am going to send these to you because I think that it ended up being a really cool exercise for me to see. It was almost like people's relationship with you came out with what they thought your superpowers were, right? And there were definitely some commonalities. In fact, it's interesting. I'm going to scroll down. One person said, Carissa Acker said, your superpower, she gave you one big superpower, and that was patience. And she said, if Ben wants something, he's willing to invest the time and play the long game. He's not afraid to work, be strategic, and show extreme patience if he means he's interested. He's the most patient, impatient person I know. So that, Carissa caught it immediately. Some other things that came out, Jolene Snell and Aaron Granahan both said similar things, which I agree with. I put it on my list. And it's this ability to make people feel like they're a very special person in your life or one of your best friends. And you have an ability to make a lot of people feel that way. Is that something that you would say that you've studied? Or does that just happen naturally because you're in the moment with everybody, do you think?
I don't love being around people, Via, but I truly care about them. So my interactions with people are sincere. And because of that, it probably builds a little bit of that feeling, right? Mm-hmm. And I probably treat people in a way that they don't get treated in their normal life. I give them compliments. I give them gratitude. I give them tough love. I give them enforcements. They know that I'm here if they need them. And that is unique. They're used to people just talking to them or telling them what to do, right? And I think why you see that is that people who would consider themselves close to me would tell you that they probably believe that I care about them and that I'd do anything for them.
Yeah, what came up a couple times from a couple different people is that there could be a room of people, and if you notice that someone's off or that they're upset or something's on their mind, that you spot it. So there's like this superpower you have, observation, probably with your inner circle, I'm guessing. That came up a few different times, actually.
Well, I think I'm observant, Via, and I don't know why that is, but I do try to observe nonverbal cues and verbal cues and engagement in people.
Yeah, I think Ben, in preparing for this interview and watching video of you doing a number of interviews, I think that's true. I think my aha and takeaway is that from a very young age, you've observed your situation, and you've kind of have this thought process where you've analyzed it, and you've figured out the strategery behind it, to use a W. Bush word. You figured out the strategy behind it, and then you go and execute it. But it all starts with your observations. I think that you have a unique way of observing the situation around you and your environment, and then acting on it. So a lot of people can act and a lot of people can observe, and you've done it both. I would almost say that that's a theme and a cycle with you, with your different pivotal events in your life.
I think people get too used to talking and thinking about their next question or thinking about how they're going to impress people, and they don't spend enough time sitting back and learning and observing. And because of that, they aren't successful in that conversion or that relationship or that recruiting or that sale, whatever that might be. Yeah, that probably goes back to patience.
Yeah, it probably does go back to.
You have to be patient to observe, right?
Yeah, I think it does go back to patience. I also think you have to observe to observe. I think it's just it's become purposeful, and it is probably a little bit in your DNA. A lot of people, a lot of commonality with the superpowers I got. I'll give you two more that were so consistent. And that is the ability to make the complex simple, right? Creating simple, easy frameworks from sometimes complicated things, complicated problems and issues. And then lastly, emotional quotient, your EQ, very high. Got that from a lot of different people. But I wanted to end today with a special one, and that's your sister's. I thought your sister's was really great. It was kind of special to me to get that from her. So Michelle Kinhart said, he never gives up. He is always learning and growing. I genuinely 110% believe he is a good person with a big heart, and I'm proud of him. I'm proud to be his sister and to be on the Ben Kinney team.
Aw, that's very kind.
I thought that was a good one to end with.
Yeah, she's a good sister. Not just because she's my only sister, but she's a good sister.
Well, I appreciate her giving me the time.
Yeah.
I know that, Ben, there's probably a lot of questions on chat. Are you willing at some point over the next week to maybe visit us on the leadership mentoring page and maybe considering answering some of those for some people?
Yeah, if you create one post, like go in there and create a post that says what other questions do you have from the webinar, and you put them all in that one thread, and then I can answer them there.
So Hattie, if you could put that link on there, everybody, thank you for joining us. You can join our Facebook group free. There's no obligation, no charge, and we'll post the replay of this interview, and then I'll create that post, and Ben will hop on there at some point and answer some questions. More importantly, Hattie, could you put the link for the Menkidis? Please join me next week. Next Friday, I'm going to interview Bo and Kimber Menkidi, 11 a.m. Pacific time on Friday. And Ben, thank you. I know you're busy. I can't thank you enough. I've wanted to do this for a very, very long time. So thanks for letting me spend a little over an hour and digging deep with you, my friend. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Anytime. It was fun. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
See you.
Bye-bye.